Should we be blocking things that could potentially be used for evil?
It's great that there's almost like something I think that will genuinely be able to rival Google in time.
The people that are going to be the most beneficial in the years to come are the people that actually know how to do the doing.
The biggest waste of money that Google still push to this day.
Can or should a government be able to tell a private company how to use and where they can distribute? It feels like quite a dark path.
Hello everyone, welcome to the latest episode of the Prompted podcast with me, Chris Nightingale at Can Do, and we've got Nick Handley as well. How you doing, Nick? You right?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. How are you?
All good.
Been a while again.
It has.
I was trying to think last time we saw each other. I've been to Barcelona since went to Shop Talk with the Connected Free gang. I don't know what have you been up to?
Everything it feels like at this stage. Although it feels like the main thing is tomorrow, like Performance MCI. It's finally here. I know we've been talking about it a lot on the podcast, but it's finally coming. So one day away. It is El Scorchio in Manchester, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it says it's going to be like 36 degrees tomorrow as well. But luckily, Bridgewater Hall has aircon, and there's going to be things laid on that should hopefully help everybody out.
Nice. That is it's going to be much needed.
Oh, absolutely.
It's such an epic venue. Like the size of the stages, the amount of people that are going to be there. I think there's a lot of hype around it, which is
yeah,
good.
It's going to be a good one. I feel that last year paved the way, and what Charlie's done sort of like showed that there is a need for it in the north, and now it's going bigger and better, and the lineup this year is insane. I know you're on the lineup as well. So
that's the opening for Jill later on. That's my job.
I know exactly. Like Jill coming over from America, but we've got some amazing northern names and northern talent. We've got some fantastic southerners coming up as well. But there's going to be a lot going on tomorrow, and massive props to Charlie and the rest of the PMCR team for doing such a stellar job and getting it up and running and live as well.
I heard someone's doing a comedy sketch, right?
Yeah, so there's a guy called Adam Faulkner. Long story, but Adam and I used to live together. But he knows Charlie now as well. And yeah, he's coming up to do a comedy sketch. He's done a few talks at like Comedy Club in London, Comedy Store. Outside of that, he also has like this mad LinkedIn following where it's all about like LinkedIn parodies around how people talk, and I believe that's what he's doing tomorrow.
Nice, something to look forward to. Although by the time this episode goes out, it'll happen, so we might even be able to post some stuff or link to some stuff. But it should be really, really good.
Absolutely.
And of course, this episode is sponsored by Uptier again today. Brilliant guys there that I work with personally as well, pretty much every day. Those are the guys that help us maximize performance and minimize waste in your paid media accounts. So go and check them out. One of the episodes that we have coming up is with Guillaume, who owns Uptier as well. So look out for that. And if you ever want to get in touch with them, Ben's the guy you want to look after. But yeah, thank you again for sponsoring the pod.
So Chris, there's been a lot going on in the world, and shall I say in the advertising space, especially in LLMs. ChatGPT's finally come to the UK. I believe it launched earlier this month. Yes. We are recording this towards the latter end of June, and I believe it came in around the 6th, 7th of June on beta. I know we've seen a bit of it happen in the US, and we've had early reads from people, but I know that you may have been using ChatGPT Ads for a few of your clients. How have you found them so far?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. So I think firstly, it's great that there's almost like something I think that will genuinely be able to rival Google in time. Not just the 10% of Bing, where that's clearly got no hope in hell. But so it's great to be on it. What we first managed to do was just get one of our clients on it, really I think 3 or 4 days before it really went to sort of wider distribution as it now is in the UK. And the first thing that became apparent is it's really clunky. It's still very early days. You can still tell it's pretty much just out of beta. And even then, it feels like a bit of an alpha product. The reason I say that is because it's very much like the old Google Ads wizards. You set up the business URL, you put in what the business is about, you put in a very weak bidding thing, and that's it. So there's no geo-targeting location. There's not even a presence or interest setting. So you literally can't control whether your ads are in China, America, or the UK. You've just got to hope that the domain name of .co.uk or the fact that you say I'm a UK business in the description is enough. There's not even really any keywords as such to go after. So it's very open-ended, and it's really interesting because I did some kind of live tests as well. And I searched for like football boots, for example, and I got an advert from JD Sports for sports shirts, which again, not quite the same, but maybe it is. And then I searched for something called surety bonds, which is what one of our clients does, and I got an advert for business insurance, which is probably because it knew that I owned a business. So it's very much kind of, I thought it was almost display, if you know what I mean. That person knows that I've been to certain sites about business insurance or maybe like football shirts before, but they don't know that they don't know I'm actively in market for that right now. So it's going to be interesting, the actual intent. I would have genuinely thought if I'm searching for football boots, I would have got an advert for football boots. If I'm searching for surety bonds, advert for surety bonds. And maybe that's just not because maybe that is because there's not that many advertisers actually bidding on those terms, or the tech isn't clever enough to really distinguish that. But it's exciting. It's another place where ads can live, where people can measure, where people can track. And I think for Yord as well, in their sort of MMM models, it's going to be really interesting to have that plugged into the rest of it.
Absolutely. I think one of the interesting ones you've pointed out is the targeting options. And the thing I'm seeing it as is like old school DSA from Google. And I think what's quite an interesting and salient point is I believe ChatGPT have called it contextual ads instead of it being keyword based. And I feel that that's the direction that we may see Google going in at some point. And I'd like to touch on Google Marketing Live at some point, because I know there's been an absolute plethora of things come out of there, especially with changes to search more than anything. But it is interesting to hear that you're having ads that aren't necessarily applicable to what you're searching for. I do wonder if it's down to that contextual cue, but it's looking at you as a person instead of what your search actually is. And it's using the memory it has and the connections it has from what you've probably spoken about when you're speaking to the LLM and speaking on ChatGPT. And I think there are going to be some pitfalls with that, right? Like we are going to see people searching for football boots, getting football shirts. Yes, it's contextually relevant, but it's not directional in the way that you want to actually go when you're looking for that. I think I find it quite frustrating if I've been served and I'm looking for running shoes and then it serves me hiking boots, because the crossover for me is quite a big crossover. One of the things I wanted to ask you on, I'm not sure if you've seen it yet, what's the reporting suite like? Because I feel that that's something a lot of people haven't touched on within the wider market. It's very much ChatGPT ads are here, you can serve this. CPMs are crazy large for some people, because I think it's more on a cost per mil basis than a CPC basis is what I'm generally gathering. But nobody's really spoken about the reporting functionality of it, and I'm wondering, does it even properly exist yet?
I think what's really interesting is when you set up a campaign, you can't even get it to optimize towards conversions yet, and that's really because the whole conversion thing is really new. You can only just start to import a tracking goal and pull the tracking side of things up. So all advertisers right now are optimizing towards clicks, which again is just a complete vanity metric. But as soon as it tries to optimize against intent, I think that's when we're going to see that change as well, in terms of football boots, surety bonds, not the kind of mix match, because the technology, they're clearly working on it right now. How do we optimize for conversions? And that's the holy grail, really. That's what every advertiser wants, is to put £1 in and get 10, 20, £30 back. So it's really, really in its infant new days. The reporting is really weak as well. I mean, it's just the average, just nuts and bolts account. You can see a lot of it, quite interestingly, is almost copied and pasted in terms of language from Google. So you've got change history in there. Interesting. Change history, you've got conversions, all the kind of nuts and bolts for Google Ads account, but it's very simplified. What someone said to me the other day, which was really, really interesting, is it looks like the interface has been put together like someone's put a prompt into ChatGPT. It is that kind, and it might have well been. It just looks very vanilla, very basic. But that, I think it is again because it's just so new.
We remember the early days of Google and Amazon in my case as well. And the platform looked like absolute garbage. And I look back at old AdWords, like probably from 2012, 2013, when I first properly jumped on and advertising my family's business, Trending Tiaras at the time, which was a bizarre little business selling tiaras for weddings and proms. But the interface back then was absolutely diabolical. In some ways it was quite nice because it felt more technical, but in other ways it just wasn't friendly to look at in the slightest. And I feel that ChatGPT will go through the iterations. We've seen it with TikTok as well, and Snap, probably in the last maybe 3 or 4 years. The TikTok ads manager and ads platform is so much better than it used to be. And I feel it's just the natural evolution, but you're unfortunately, or fortunately in some cases, a bit of a guinea pig for how the platform probably will evolve. And these early users within the UK are probably going to shape how it will look in the next like year to 2 years in particular.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the other bit to point out from that is everyone's going to be jumping on it from the start, but this is the best time to be testing it because the competition will be the least it's ever been. As soon as this kind of the word gets out about it and people start telling other people and the mates and agencies and businesses, more people will jump on.
Yeah.
So it's really you want to be first movers advantage here. And that's where the opportunity is. And that's why a lot of the clients that I'm talking to today, we're trying to get on board. The biggest annoyance that I have is the MCC structure.
Yep.
So you cannot yet have I can't log into multiple accounts with my same email. So my one email, my business email is locked to a client effectively until they kind of get rid of me of whatever. So it means that at the moment, at least, every client has to have their own Gmail for me to plug into that and manage that, which again, for reporting purposes, for hooking up to Claude or doing some analysis is just an absolute pain. So I'm really hoping they fix that soon because once that happens, the floodgates have opened, but they've been really harsh on it. So I know that there's been a couple of companies that have had their accounts suspended because they've set up a couple of accounts with the same, obviously, name, billing details, whatever, but two different email addresses, but fundamentally the same business. And they've just been suspended accounts by ChatGPT because it doesn't want that to happen. So I think for a lot of agencies, that's going to be a real sore spot right now is how do we scale this for our clients?
Yeah.
And the answer isn't very clear, but I'm hoping in time they kind of switch that around and realize the value of having an agency MCC account that will be pushing things for clients.
It's quite poignant as well. I feel that by the sounds of it, they've geared it towards brands over agencies and may have underestimated the UK market. I can't really speak for many other markets. I know the US has quite a big agency market, but at the same point, the UK seems to have one of the densest agency networks in the world, from what I've seen, especially in Manchester. If you ever want to have a fun game, just dot yourself somewhere in central Manchester on Google Maps and just watch how many agencies appear up around the same square. There's generally like you at least see 5. Wow. And I find that absolutely baffling. But yet again, Manchester's become a very hot place for digital tech and in particular marketing.
Yeah.
But hopefully they will take it on board that the UK market massively needs agency management instead of it just being direct to brand management.
Yeah,
and
agreed.
it would drive me absolutely insane having to have separate email addresses, especially with the irony of you using Claude to pull results out and look at data as well. But realistically, it's so much easier, and I think hopefully it will get the adoption of having an MCC or some form of client manager like every other platform has. I believe TikTok only got it about 2 years ago as well, because I remember when I was running TikTok accounts when I was at Rise at 7, and I had to log in separately using my own email to be able to get onto them as well. So I feel that we're seeing the natural iteration of ChatGPT, like we have others as well.
Yeah, agreed. It's such an interesting time because I remember, and I think we both sort of looked at ChatGPT when LLMs became a thing, and both of us, I think it's fair to say, have moved away to them to some degree, whether it is Gemini, whether it is Claude. Claude, particularly for me now, has become the one I use, and it didn't used to be the one I touched before. But still, they're lagging so far behind in terms of the numbers, and I think that's mainly because it is a commercial product rather than a general user product. ChatGPT is by still in a way like the biggest at the moment, but Gemini is really catching up. I think it's about half to 2/3 of its way to ChatGPT. So ads in ChatGPT, ads in Gemini that are coming. Claude's the only real outlier there, but that could be like the LinkedIn of the world. The volume might be a lot smaller, but it might be the place to get business people. I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting as well. And I think the distinguishing factor is that ChatGPT feels more of the everything engine at the moment, whereas Gemini feels very search-based, and I think it will always be about where Google's building it into native products, which is quite cool to see, but that's the direction it's going in. And I believe Claude, they even sort of said and have done advertising for it, that it's the AI for business. So I think we are going to see the three merge off a bit further and may not become direct competitors like they are now. And we might see more use cases. Like I use Cowork probably every day now, not for doing like hard analysis. I'm still in R or speaking to our data science team, but for things where I just need something quick or to get a mock of how I could present data or how I could graph a certain test. That's how I use it. And I believe, in my opinion, ChatGPT and Gemini just do not have the functionality of what I need. Claude feels very logical. It's terrible at creative writing, which is a fun one because I've tried. and it is absolutely shocking just to see what it came out with.
Yeah, yeah.
I needed a bio for a conference, and I was like, I will use ChatGPT, I'll use Claude, and I'll use Gemini to see how they produced. And I actually found ChatGPT was the best one at creative writing, and I'll say that very much with inverse commas, because I'm like, it's not creative, it's just taking what it's found from me and the data I've given it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think they're all going to have very different functions. I'm quite excited to see where we do go. And quickly on the point around reporting, I know you mentioned MMM and other bits around measurement. I think probably the biggest one for me now is looking at incrementality and geo holdouts. Incredibly hard to do a geo holdout when you don't have geo data. That's one thing that I'll categorically say. In my opinion, it's the gold standard for measuring and finding incrementality, because it allows you to have a synthetic control and allows you to understand a control versus a test instead of looking at a time series analysis. But it will be interesting over time when spends get big enough to put it into an MMM, and you've got less variability, or shall I say confidence, where your median, your midline starts balancing a bit closer with lower variance. That'll be really cool to see the impact it does have.
Yeah.
But I think for now, generally for people that are testing, if you've got a solid line in the sand of when you've started running ChatGPT ads, and say you've not had much change within the wider marketing mix, but things have stayed consistent, it's going to be quite an interesting one to put through a causal impact tool, or look at it over the course of time and see whether you see an incremental gains from it. And I think if anyone's wanting to do that, like Google's causal impact tool is actually pretty good at doing it. As long as you can run R, or you've got somebody that could potentially look at that, you could probably get some really cool results out of it. And as an agency, I know we're looking at ChatGPT ads, and it's actually one of the things that we're wanting to put behind it is a proper testing plan, so we can go to market and say ChatGPT ads are actually contributing, because I want to move away from attribution.
Yeah.
But it's going to be quite interesting to see how it actually does perform.
Yeah.
And granted, causal impact analysis is more of a directional, it's not an actual. So, but even if it gives us, hey, it looks like it's having an effect and it takes X amount of days to convert, or X amount of weeks in terms of latency, it's going to be really nice to then tell a client we should probably test and invest more and build a structured test around it, instead of it just being a, hey, we'll turn it on and see what happens. It will allow us to have a bit more rigor to understanding the impact and the effectiveness of it as well.
Yeah, and I think as well, like there's a lot of benefits of you doing it and then saying we did it ourselves for our own businesses, and this is the impact. It's like, I think we might have talked about this before, but there's agencies I know that have e-commerce brands stitched onto them because they know their stuff. They run the e-commerce brand themselves, so they know how to set up a Shopify website, they know how to manage Google Ads, they know how to measure incrementality, because they're doing it firsthand, not only for clients, they're doing it with their own money. And I think that's really valuable. So the fact that someone's going to do a video in time, maybe I should try and beat them, that's just said, I spent £1,000 on ChatGPT, this is what I got. Because people will be interested, people will want to try it, but they will be a little bit apprehensive in terms of, is it just going to blow my budget, or is it going to give me a decent return? So as soon as that conversion option becomes available, which could be today, it could be next month, it could be Christmas, as soon as that option is available, I think that's when I'm going to pull the trigger on ChatGPT ads and say, what can it do for can do?
That'd be a really cool test, and one that I would 100% want to see the results of. So I think ultimately, if we can show the results ourselves, like you said, these agencies that back and use these different tools. Granted, it is a bit nuanced, because agency marketing versus consumer marketing is a very different beast. But even if you can get reporting out and you can understand how it works, it one gives you the competitive advantage, but it also helps the industry. And I like to think marketing has quite a knowledge sharing aspect. And we saw that with your like the, I'm going to butcher this, the paid media, state of paid media 2026.
That's the one.
There we are, got it. I think people were really receptive to it, and I think if people can share more, we're only going to learn more and these tools are going to become more useful to us. So yeah, please do it. It'd be great fun to see.
I'm going to do it, and I guess there's a bit of exclusive. We'll call it an exclusive. There's going to be a State of Paid Media 2027 as well. So that's going to be probably launched Q1 of 2027. I'm currently just gearing together the sort of speakers that I want and experts. But yeah, big plans behind that for next year to do it again, because I think, like you say, there's a load of great people that managed to give me a little bit of words, including yourself, kind words in there. So yeah, I'm looking to do it all over again.
You're getting a completely new roster. Try get people new people in,
Yeah,
and get a fresher
bit of all,
take.
bit of I think a bit of a mix because there were just so many great people. I want to make it bigger as well,
Yeah.
so I might even double the amount of not slots, but double the amount of experts in there because everyone's opinion was so valued, and maybe break it up into different sections, so an AI section,
Yeah.
and then we can close that off and we can have like a ChatGPT section or like a
Yeah,
measurement section, and almost chapter it up that way and just get multiple people's views in one section rather than sort of one person's view per section, if you know what I
Yeah,
mean.
no, that makes complete sense. And if
Yeah.
you do need a measurement section, you know where to
I
come.
know where you are. Absolutely. No, brilliant.
Speaking of new announcements and things happening within the industry, we could talk about Google Marketing Live, but I think there's been a bit of a reaction to AI from Google. But I think we're seeing this from a slightly different vein across different providers. And the one that I really wanted to bring up, and I've got the stat in front of me, is about Meta. So eMarketer, just an online publication, has forecasted that Meta will overtake Google in terms of ad revenue by the end of 2026.
Yeah.
And I think it's an interesting topic to dive into, given that we're seeing Google shift a lot of their efforts into the AI space and more, actually, consumer-led AI.
Yep.
Whereas it feels that Meta, granted, Meta, in my opinion, is a bit of a platform that will eventually decline with the rise of other platforms that are taking over.
Yeah.
But I feel like their AI usage has been more on the advertiser side and being a lot more behind the scenes outside of the AI box within Facebook and within Instagram and within WhatsApp. I feel that they're not pushing it or forcing it in the way that Google has, where they're making a fundamental change to the search results using AI.
Yeah.
I thought it'd be a nice one to have a chat about and understand what our thoughts are.
Yeah.
Because I generally do feel we are going into, or have been in for a long time, the social marketing is becoming much more paramount.
Yes.
But the idea of being able to do consumer-led and community-led as well. And I feel that Meta, in particular Instagram, and I'm going to ignore TikTok for now because I think we all know it's a fantastic beast within itself and it has its place within the marketing mix.
Yeah.
But I'd be interested to get your take on what you think of this forecast that Meta is going to overtake Google, and if you've got any sort of thoughts on whether you think that's going to happen or the reasons why as well.
I mean, the fact that it could even happen is bananas when you think about the billions that Google produces in the first place. Google have been very open with Gemini. They put advertisements out there for the F1, whereas I feel like Meta haven't been as in our face, like you say. They are very much behind the scenes. But Advantage Plus has just been the absolute winner for a lot of brands. And again, for anyone out there who doesn't know, Advantage Plus, really, you give the keys to Meta and you say, find me the right audience to target. I'm not going to put in loads and loads of layers in terms of what pages they like, what interests they like, all that kind of stuff. If they're male or female in London or Manchester, Mr. Meta, you tell me who I should be targeting. And I think for a lot of advertisers, they were a bit fearful of doing that. But actually the CPMs were cheaper because you're not hyper-targeted on men in Manchester who like football shirts. You're targeted on anyone, but based on the conversion data that Meta analyzes, they were probably more likely to then cast that net wider. And actually the results have been really, really good. I'd still recommend for any Meta account that you still have, your prospecting, remarketing, and Advantage Plus on the side. But it's almost like PMax in a way. It's a bit more black box. It's a bit more kind of just go and do what you want. Even when it comes to creative, Meta are starting to mold what creative looks like. They're putting music behind it. They're putting crops, which in some cases is horrendous. I think we talked about this before, where someone put I think it was Christmas music on a normal ad in summer, and it was like, that's just completely bananas. But it's clearly very powerful because of these projections that are coming out. So it's definitely one to try, and if you're using it already, it's definitely something to scale. The only kind of key caveat that I'd be wary of as us as marketers is if it does really well or does really bad, you don't know why it does well or bad, so you can't scale it or you can't reduce it in that way because you don't know. So knowing is almost more important than the actual doing, which is why when it comes to analysis of identifying what this traffic is doing on your site, are they staying there for a long time, what pages they're going on, what are they searching for, having that data is going to be really crucial if you can't fundamentally see the audience that person is fundamentally coming through on.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I mirror your points, and I can't remember what they're called in Meta because I don't use the platforms like I used to. But is it called enhancements? Do you know where you can turn them on or off within Advantage Plus?
Yeah.
I would highly recommend, just from speaking to people in the social team and from the years of doing it prior to before just measurement. turn them off. Don't
Yeah.
don't even give Google, Meta the power to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Like, focus on your own testing, from creative, and we all know creative is now becoming the new targeting as such, especially within social platforms, or should I say paid social.
Yeah.
But I think one of the interesting points as well, and I think for me personally, I see the rise of influencers and content creators and UGC, and say the rise, it's been around for a while, but it feels like it's just become commonplace in the media mix now. And in terms of creative, I feel like that's where Meta is winning, is that they focus a lot more on like influencer partnerships. They have their influencer partner program,
Yeah.
and other aspects such as that.
Yeah.
And I feel for me that's probably where they're winning, and we are seeing Google wanting to push more YouTube, because I think we're seeing the same side of the coin, where they're wanting to get more community led, more content led
Yeah.
strategies and ads out there into the world, because they see it as a viable source, maybe a fight against AI.
Yeah.
In a sense, and I feel like that's probably the biggest thing. Even though Meta's using the Advantage Plus, and there'll be more things coming. I know Zuckerberg, was it last year, said that at some point you'll just be able to give it a budget and your website, and it will do everything for you, which actually strikes a fear of God into me, because I
Yeah.
don't really want any platform to be doing
Yeah.
that, which is why I find ChatGPT a bit of a scary one for me
Yeah.
personally at the moment, because I want more targeting and control.
Absolutely.
Even if it's just for brand safety more
Yeah.
than anything, and that's something I think we massively overlook, is that you don't really want your brand appearing next to, say, something, say you're selling insurance and it's car insurance, but then it comes up for life insurance or, funeral policies or anything
Yeah.
like that, just because they're, intrinsically linked in a way, because it's insurance based.
Yeah.
Mad.
It is mad. Sorry to interrupt. Google are kind of, they've been going down this route for a long time now. In that, remember, like smart campaigns where you just literally put in your website, put in what the business is about, it will create ads, go suggest keywords, all the rest of it. It's one of those things that every advertising platform will love to do it, because they know that that's how they're going to get the most amount of money. And actually, by giving everyone the most niche granular controls, everyone's able to fight for that bottom percentile of very intent traffic, and all of the top end traffic, which is maybe more mid funnel or higher funnel. Yes, it's important for advertisers, but it's not the real juicy good stuff.
Yeah.
So because of that, we've obviously seen things like PMatch and Advantage Plus to kind of wash away some of that. But interestingly, I think what I'm seeing now is for Google, like you say, they're pushing YouTube, they're pushing demand gen. My God, the amount of like Google reps I've had that say you need to push like YouTube, and it's kind of a bit like, really? Like, yes, it's really good for visibility, and yes, that you can get YouTube now for action, video for action, but it is just not as effective as search a lot of times. And for 9 out of 10 advertisers I work with and brands, they're just not hitting the search impression share to then warrant spending an additional chunk of money on YouTube. Really, you should only be spending money on YouTube if you're probably spending at least 300k a month, I'd say, on ads. Otherwise, there's plenty of search appetite. Unless you're a super niche business, then I'd definitely recommend just park on YouTube until you really do need that incremental growth and you're dominating the market already. But yeah, I think YouTube also got I can't remember what it's called, but they've got some sort of content partnership creator studio thing as well now. So again, they're looking to create these partnerships, which I think is more authentic in the space. There's things like Twirl as well, if you've heard of those.
I've not heard of Twirl.
So those guys push out UGC content. They match you with influencers that do videos for you. So again, it's all this world of authentic, original content rather than just farming something through AI, which is really, really easy to do. There is a third one as well, which I can't remember what it's called, and I'm going to have to put it as like a bit of text or something, but it's the same guy who did Brewdog. His partner has set up a company.
James Watt.
Yes, his girlfriend or wife has set up
the Made in Chelsea woman.
Her.
And I don't want to talk down to her, because I just generally don't know her name, but yeah, she's got a separate company, because I know that he's also launching a new beer brand as well, which I'm rather skeptical with how Brewdog ended, especially with the equity punk side of things. I feel that a lot of people got stung, even if it's small amounts of investment. Like, I don't know, it just didn't really wash well with me, and I think that I wouldn't follow his business again if I was one of those people. And to be fair, I was never a Brewdog fan as such.
Yeah.
Maybe call me a bit of a pretentious, I don't know what to say because we're on a podcast, but pretentious person is how I'll position it. But I just don't know, I just never really bought into Brewdog. It felt that weird, like, hyper masculine, like, we do things differently, we're better than the rest, like, we care for our people. And that facade and guys quickly dropped when they became part of, was it Heineken? I can't remember which one they got bought by, bit of a, had a share from another brewery.
Yeah.
I've completely butchered it because it's not Heineken, but you saw all of the reviews that came out, and I'm like, I can't support this. Like,
The premise was there, wasn't it? Remember the reports that came out of how they treat staff and things
yeah,
like that?
that's
And obviously,
exactly.
yeah, I obviously don't know anyone there and don't know the real ins and outs of it, but that was a thing. And obviously the whole thing with if you invest in it was almost cult-like in a way.
Yeah,
Do you
yeah.
know what I mean? People really got behind it, and they did some interesting stuff with
Good brand.
like Aldi or Lidl, the collabs there, all kind of stuff. Yeah, really interesting brand, really interesting concept. But the business, I've just googled it. It's called Social Tip. So
Okay.
what you can fundamentally do is have reward caps. So you want to say, I want to give people £20 if they post about my company, and from like verified customers, and you can have like a weekly limit of like say 3 posts, and then you'll be paying 60 quid for 3 videos of someone who's received your product for real, or I think you can send them out for free maybe, and they give you a genuine, honest, positive mostly review on that, and it's a really cheap way to get UGC.
Yeah, absolutely. I think with UGC, it's probably one of the cheaper forms of getting content, and especially for ads where we're finding that UGC and reviews and recommendations is probably one of the more powerful tools in marketing at the moment, especially for challenger brands. Maybe not as much for your Pradas, your Gucci's, your Nikes. They
Yeah.
really don't need that. But for a brand that is still finding its feet and finding its audience, it's hugely beneficial, and that's a really cool platform as well. Quite often I'm scrolling through Instagram or TikTok to find people that are talking about the brands that I work with as products, and then I'm not doing it, but I'm pretty certain our social team are then messaging people and getting content that way because it's one, cheaper, and two, it's more authentic as well.
Yeah.
And I think the authenticity is probably the larger point for me. I think brands are willing to pay for content as long as it's authentic as well.
Yeah.
So I think we went through a bit of that weird phase maybe 2-3 years ago where everybody was using influencers and it felt incredibly fake, and now I
Yes.
generally see it as TikTok shop or people going live on TikTok is like where they're slamming a product, and you can tell straight away that they don't care and have never used it.
No.
And I feel like more of those authentic, organic interactions are
Yes.
the way forward for marketing.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's why it helps if your business is something that you can almost like apply yourself, like beauty. They can apply it themselves, show like a before and after, whatever that looks like. There is fundamentally a lot that you can do in that space. It's a bit harder if you're an influencer of a B2B surety bond thing.
Yeah.
It's like, how does this work? It's a financial product. But again, I know companies that are doing it for insurance and things like that,
Yeah.
and it's a really interesting space. But I think all of this really boils down to, we saw it at the Google Ads, what was it, Google Marketing Live 2026.
Yeah.
It's all fundamentally boiling down to AI giving us more control, but equally putting brands at ease a little bit and saying it's okay. So I think you called this out before with the Ask Advisor. That's where you can literally just ask it anything you want in terms of what's happening with my keywords, do me a report on the CPCs, and it'll go out and do it for you, which is really clever. And I think, again, it all comes down to, maybe it's just because I'm nervous, but I always feel that they're kind of chopping out the agency here. They're trying to say, don't worry, don't listen to what the agency says. We've got you back. This is what the Google Ads are saying. And maybe that's just the way it is. But I found that a lot of the times, people that aren't very, let's say, technical in Google Ads, trying to run a Google Ads campaign when they don't have any idea of the true incremental settings, that's when it goes wrong. Just think, like, I always thought Google's on our side, right? But the location and setting for presence and interest is on by default. So you're targeting bricklayers in Brazil just because they've got an interest in England. And that to me is just the biggest waste of money that Google still push to this day, and fundamentally why I can't trust them, and why I've got to really knuckle down to make sure that my client spend is not wasted at all.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? The whole Google default settings, it's like they're almost there to trip you up.
Yeah.
Like when back in the day you set up a search campaign, it would always have display select included, and whoever wants to bundle a search campaign and a display campaign in the same campaign type.
Yeah.
And like you said, the presence setting, it's just daft. It's like whoever wants the, is interested in this location as well as actually in said location. But yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting space. I think especially with the changes to AI mode and conversational discovery ads and other things like that, it feels like Google is going whole hog into AI instead of it just being hey, we're dipping our toes in it. It's very much, I think, the same as Brain Labs. If you've seen any of the Brain Labs stuff with Daniel Gilbert, agency, for anyone that doesn't know, they're probably one of the largest agencies in the UK now. But they've essentially just been like, cool, we're we're AI native and we're AI first, and we rebuild our company like that. I feel like Google are trying to do that and productize everything to be based around AI, and
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not sure how I feel about it.
The-
Hopefully the search experience gets better, but I actually quite liked Google's search experience. It
Yeah.
never felt out of place or old or antiquated. It always felt like quite directional, and it gave the conciseness that I needed.
Yeah. This is a bit of an odd take I think I have, but I've always wondered if AI has existed for many years, but nothing's been consumer facing until now.
Well, it
Because
has.
now it's just everywhere. And
It used to be
everyone's
called
using it.
ML. I know we had Stephen Kemwright on the podcast, and he summed it up quite nicely around, LLMs, AI have always existed, but it used to be called machine learning.
Yeah.
If you look at the early days of smart, technically it's a form of AI or machine learning where it used, Bayesian as its core. And that's not really changed in a lot of ways. It's just, you are right, it's become more consumer focused now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas before, it's been a thing from the 80s, 90s. It's been around for a while. We've just decided to change it to a more consumer friendly name
That's what it
and
is.
create tools that are more consumer facing.
Yeah, we're kind of just packaging it up to look nice and be able to do things. And fundamentally, that's, I think, just going back to Claude, ChatGPT, and Gemini. That's why I use Claude, because it can do things, not just tell me things. And you can tell it to do things on cowork, like go and change this in a spreadsheet, go onto my computer and pull these images and change them from a landscape to a square. It can just do that. And I think, really strong that it can do that. But equally, if you're handing the keys over for something that is a computer to go and do a task that you don't know whether it'll do correctly or incorrectly, and then give you results that may again be incorrect, that it's saying with confidence, minefield, right? So I remember we talked about this quite a lot in terms of when we used NAN back in those days. If anyone remembers the first few episodes of the pod.
I've started picking it back up again.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, just build some simple workflows because we'll move on to it at some point. But the whole, Claude's new models being banned outside of the US by the US government. I'll come on to it in a sec, but we can't put all our eggs in one basket. I need to find ways of potentially diversifying how we do things, just in case that I can't commoditize one product to do everything for an agency.
If it breaks overnight, then the rest of your workflow's screwed up, isn't it?
Like,
But
I think Kirk Williams have mentioned it before. It's like the people that are going to be the most beneficial in the years to come are the people that actually know how to do the doing.
Yes.
And I completely subscribe to that.
Yeah, agreed.
Like, don't rely on AI. And I feel sorry I won't say sorry, a bit concerned for junior level marketers at the moment that have come in and are using AI.
Yeah.
Like, if you're an agency owner, teach them how to do the doing, and then let them incorporate AI just in case something does break, or we see an outage where all your LLMs go down, because it's not a safe place to live in my opinion.
It's like that framework, I think, of 20-60-20. So 20% is start with a human, know the process you want. 60% go and do the work, let the AI do it. But before you send that report, before you send the email, bloody check the work that the AI is doing. Otherwise, it can screw you over massively. But the point on it was, I think you mentioned how you had different bots or different tools doing different things. So one sort of making sure the brand's on point, one making sure the stats are being read correctly. That's what I'm baking in now into the MCPs on Claude. So I've got an MCP for Optio, an MCP for Markifact, and I'm basically saying, right, Optio's saying this, Markifact, go and check that. Optio's going to do this, Markifact, go and check that. And they're working in parallel because they're both connected into my Google Ads accounts, but they're validating the work, which I think is an extra layer of safety. It's not the same bot that's validating it; it's a different tool altogether. And I think that just needs to be that safety layer, because you can say, go and set something up. I've had this already. Set something up, and it goes, set that up, but it hasn't. But it says that it has. So the more amount of safety layers you can get, the better. But equally, like you said, you need to know your stuff. If it didn't do it for whatever reason, you need to know how to do it yourself. It's almost like having a junior member of the team. You wouldn't tell that junior person to do something that you would never know or want to do yourself. And I think that's definitely what I'm subscribed to in my business between the couple of guys that I have with me, is that I'd never ask them to do something that I would, again, not be able to do. It's more the time aspect. It's helping me out. And I think, that's what we should be aiming for.
To round this episode off, I thought it would be silly not to mention and not to bring up the recent debacle that's happened in the US that has affected all of us around Anthropic and the US banning, or shall I say limiting, the usage of its new models, Fable 5 I believe, outside of the US. And that is absolutely nuts to me, and I think it raises a very interesting question around governance and around can or should a government be able to tell a private company how to use and where they can distribute their material? It feels like quite a dark path. I know there was a few points raised on it from the US around, the idea that it could be, jailbroken, or it could be abused, or it could leak sensitive information. But generally, I think that isn't necessarily the case. I know there'll be some truth in there, but we've seen this happen time and time over, where a US entity, has had, like a misuse code or anything like that, and it's still being able to trade and trade around the world because it's in the benefit of the US. And this isn't me trying to slam the US as such. I think there's one particular person in the US who runs the country.
Yep.
That I've got a feeling probably had a bit of personal disagreements and differences with, the people over at Anthropic, and I think that's probably maybe what's caused it. But I can put my tinfoil hat on because that is not a found fact in the slightest. But I think it raises a bigger thing, as I mentioned, around governance of AI and LLMs in particular, and should a government be able to interject and say yes or no to a model being consumer-led outside of the US? Because I don't know if you've used Claude recently or since it's happened, which I believe it was June 12th or 16th, one of the two.
Yep.
You might have it up in front of you, I'm not sure,
yeah,
the 12th.
Yeah, you're spot on.
But yeah, I feel that it's just an odd one, because I get the notification being like, Fable is not available in your region. And I'm like, that's absolutely mad.
Yeah.
That I'm being limited because of the powers of another government.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? And I think fundamentally this boils down to politics and money, if I'm being honest. Anthropic were involved with helping the US military out. I think they became too expensive, or no, they wouldn't allow them to use their most advanced solutions with no guardrails. Anthropic wanted the guardrails on, so they kind of then whitelisted Anthropic or Claude as a national security risk, which is hilarious. So apart from the fact that ChatGPT quickly swooped in there, I think they just had that label over them for a while. Until recently, they've only just now been removed, I think, as a national security threat, which is ridiculous to say. But I think because of that, the US are obviously looking at them with a different lens, let's say. And I think there's no doubt about it, the new models are very powerful. I remember having a look at the release notes when it came out of their latest model, and they said that it was, had a lot of security safeguards on because of what it could do, which also makes me extremely nervous that we're all looking at Terminator and we all say, nah, that's never going to happen. But every time a new model comes out, it's closer and closer to what Terminator could be like.
So what the next model is going to be called? It's going to be called Skynet.
Yes. As soon as that happens, that's when to run and turn the computers off.
Yeah, they'll turn themselves back on at that point. Like, it'll have complete control.
Yeah.
Not sure if you've ever seen the Simpsons episode where the electronic. In fact, sorry, it's not the Simpsons. It's a Futurama episode where one of the the evil characters in it essentially activates all robots to be evil, but everything's robotic. So like the toaster, the fridge, everything comes alive and essentially is trying to eradicate the human race. And I can just imagine the same sort of thing. Less tongue in cheek and definitely a lot more scary and sobering. But it is scary that we're at a point where they're having to put guardrails on to say you can't use this in certain ways because it is actually quite powerful and potentially quite dangerous. And there's always people out there that are trying to exploit these. Like I know I mentioned about the McBot, the McDonald's AI, where the guy exploited it for it to be able to produce his own coding within the actual chatbot itself. And I feel that if you can do that, there's going to be people out there, and there definitely is people out there that are jailbreaking these systems. You can see it on Reddit. I know people post about it. I can't remember what the subreddit is, but people post about jailbreaking LLMs all the time to get it to do quite nefarious things. Even if it is just for a bit of fun. They're trying to show the fundamental flaws in the system. So is there a point that we should probably stop? And I don't know, because it's hard, because I'm like, progression and evolution of technology is obviously a big thing for humans and it's a big thing for society, but should we be blocking things that could potentially be, I wouldn't say evil as in they're evil, but could be used for evil in senses?
I absolutely agree.
But yeah, I think that wraps us up, doesn't it?
Pretty much, yeah. Thank you guys again for watching the episode today of the Prompted Podcast with obviously me, Chris, and Nick. Tune in for next time's episode. We've got the founder Optio who will be joining us, and of course the guys sponsor our pod as well, so massive hats off to those. But until then, we'll see you in the next episode.
There you go.
Thanks for
Cheers,
joining.
guys.